Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, March 8th, 2024, and this is episode 877 of Living Free in Tennessee. And as predicted, Tactical is going to walk in late because he was outside sanding posts instead of getting ready for the live stream. And then when he walked in on time, he decided he had to make a cup of coffee too. Can you move forward a little bit so you're not like... It's like he's creepy and lurking in the background when he's way back there. I put you in the lower chair so we're like the same height. I'm actually taller than you right now. It's just because I have a messy bun. Anyway, it's our weekly Homestead Happenings show, guys. If you are in the live stream, you can get your questions in. Put the word question in all caps and then ask me your question. And then also, if you are an audio listener and you want to get something in on this, like just email me, NicoleSauce@livingfreeintennessee.com. We're going to talk about some fencing decisions that have had to be made and the training center stuff, and then a whole bunch of other things this week. There's been a lot. It's spring on the homestead. So what's spring on Homestead like, Tactical?
Busy, but actually really nice because, I'm not freezing.
Usually not freezing.
Yeah.
He's sopping wet all the time, though, this week.
Apparently.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain. Anyway, before we jump into our usual segments, I'm going to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that is the Seed Exchange and Potluck, which is next Saturday here at 1 p.m., 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Bring something to share. Come trade seeds with people or just grab some extra seeds. I have so many extra seeds. Do not buy your garden seeds. I mean, some of you have already bought some of your garden seeds, but don't go to the store until you come here. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then you'll probably have a truncated list of what you need to get. That's 1 p.m. at the Holler Homestead. If you want to just find out the address and all of that stuff, it's at livingfreeintennessee.com. On the right-hand column is our event calendar, and it is over there. I also want to thank our two sponsors of today's show. Do you wish that you had a way to protect the solar system from a lightning strike?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes. Well,
no. We need to
go
go over to empshield.com and get our EMP device for the solar system. What has stood in my way has been that I don't know what to get, but I literally friends with the owner and some guys that work for him. So all I have to do is tell them, snap, this is what my solar system looks like. Which one do I buy? And then I will use the coupon code LFTN to get $50 off. I use my own coupon codes, guys. Anyway, EMP Shield has a device that helps you with a lot of things, including surges and unpredictable things that happen to your power. And if they fail, they have an insurance policy to replace things that are busted up to $20,000 or $25,000. I can't remember which one of those it is.
I thought it was a lot more
than that. No. It's but our solar system, to replace it would be about $5,000, I think, if it got, and it wouldn't fry everything. Like if lightning hit our solar system, the panels would probably be fine. It would be the electronics inside the inverter
and maybe the battery.
So, at that point, that would be totally, all we have to do is put an EMP device on it. It's like a $300 insurance policy for that.
Yeah. And I have been in a building that got struck by lightning and it smoked a lot of stuff.
It will smoke.
Really important stuff too.
Yeah. You want to be careful of that. Like your surge protector that's plugged into the wall may not be enough if a lightning bolt strikes the transformer outside your house. And the other thing is that like the on and off flashy stuff can be pretty lame on your equipment too. And you're not going to plug your oven into a power strip anyway. That would not be safe.
Yeah, well, the building that we had got struck by lightning. The surge protectors did nothing.
Yeah. Anyway, EMPshield.com, our second sponsor of today's show, is Harvest Right freeze dryers. Wouldn't it be really cool if our freeze dryer was not broken right now?
Yes.
You know what I need to do to get that dealt with?
I have no idea.
I need to change the oil.
Really?
Yeah. And I need to get it all plugged in, and I don't have somewhere to plug it in that's easy to get to, so we need to talk about that.
Okay.
Because I can use some heavy-duty extension cords, but you're not supposed to run it through extension cords.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, sometimes they break, guys. And once I run it the next cycle, I will find out if my heating error was because I freeze dried cauliflower for 2.5 weeks or something. It wasn't really that long, but it was longer. So when you get to the end of a cycle, you can be like, just dry it some more, dry it some more, dry it some more. I did that for a really long time on some mushrooms, actually. And that's when I started getting this heat error. And I think it was like, lady, take this out of the freeze dryer. But I'm doing a deep clean. I'm changing the oil. And then if I get that, it could mean that one of the heating elements on the shelf inside needs to replace. You know what I'm going to do with that, guys? I'm going to call Harvest Right, and I'm going to get what I need to replace that. I've seen a lot of things online about Harvest Right not being good with customer service. Here's what I know. I personally never had that experience. I think it has to do with when you call them being not mad that your freeze dryer is broken and being ready to take the steps that you know you need to do. So like I know if that's the error I'm getting, that what it most likely is inside a freeze. It's like a chamber that gets pulled into a vacuum, and then there's a set of heating racks that you put trays on, and that plugs into the power and they heat up while it's super cold around them. And that makes the moisture freezes first in your food, and then it goes straight from frozen state to gas. That's called sublimation. And so you have to have some heat under the food to make that happen. And the way that that can go wrong over time, because things wear out, is that some heating elements could have gone out. And I'm going to assume I have to replace the whole tray and not just part of it, but I don't know that for sure until I get through and do another sample freeze dry load. But with that in mind, I've had a few issues with Harvest Right freeze dryers, and every time I call them and they're like, do this. And if you are any like even remotely mechanically inclined, you can do the thing. But if you're terrified of breaking into this commercial machine and changing a part, then it might not be for you, as a matter of fact, because you're going to have, it's a commercial piece of equipment. You're going to have to fix things on it. Do we fix things on my roaster?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I know is that for a couple of years there was, it seemed to be an increased amount of complaints about things breaking. And in the last 6 months or so, that's gone down again. And so I've talked to some people who order a freeze dryer once a year because they keep building their business on freeze dried foods. And they were like, yeah, the one I got in 2022 was, it had a lot of problems, but even with that, nobody that I know personally hasn't been able to resolve the problems. Maybe you're the person who hasn't, and you can email me. So I do still recommend Harvest Right freeze dryers because they're the only game in town that I know of that I can count on. Now, I have not, there's another one, Patriot something freeze dryers. I haven't tested one of those. I'd love to test one of those. I don't want to buy one of those right now, though. So unless I find somebody with one to test, then that ain't happening. I do know that you love the one you're with, man. Harvest Right freeze dryers as well. If you want to get a Harvest Right freeze dryer or look at them, they're having a sale right now. Check out the link in the show notes and I will get credit for referring you. And if you buy one, I, in fact, will get a commission because I am an affiliate provider. Now, I do not accept affiliate relationships with anybody that I don't have the thing myself and use it. Okay. Or haven't at least once in my life had it and used it. So that is at livingfreeintennessee.com if you want to check out the show notes. And otherwise, we're going to go into our first segment, which is featured forage. I'd also like to welcome to the live stream Sherub, I don't know, 99936. Better late than never. That's for you. Because I informed them you were going to be late before this started because I could tell.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how somebody as OCD with you as you are is that comfortable with hopping into things late. Like I'm time Nazi.
Yeah. I've got 9,000 things to do right now, so it's literally. What's the one dude that said that when you're walking from one side of your homestead to the other, pick something up that needs to go over there and carry it with you? I can't remember the guy's name right now.
John Moody.
No, there was I think he was Japanese.
Oh, I don't know.
That originally said that, but that's literally the game that I'm playing right now.
That's how you left tools out in the rain, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I put the hoe out in the rain on purpose, by the way. I put it right under the roof line.
I did not move that.
Okay, good. I was spreading poop with it yesterday.
It has a fiberglass handle. I'm less concerned about that being rained on.
Don Gorham, welcome to the live stream. Are we wearing the same shirt today again? Just wondering. She and I think, have the same flannel from Duluth Trading Company. And I always see her like picture of her doing with her arms out like this in front of her bounty that she has created from her homestead. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a Duluth Trading flannel shirt and that I wear the same one all the time. Because I have like, right now I have 4 flannel shirts. I have a new one I got from Duluth. It's not really flannel. It's more of a wider mesh. It's a little bit warmer. And that thing has snaps instead of buttons. And so I can like Superman, pop it open. And I love that way better than the buttons that you have to put through the buttonhole. So Fukioko. Oh, yeah.
That was the guy I was trying to think of.
Yep, that is true. And then Jed Froggy's on. I wonder how much Harvest Right problems are just people that are new to it. I think that's a big part of it, Jed. Because when you get a piece of equipment that's commercial, you have problems. Like my roaster has problems. Actually, my dishwasher broke and it's not actually fixed all the way. Okay. So we were trying to troubleshoot fixing it. I was doing dishes by hand for much of the week until I was like, how about we just bring my other dishwasher over that I use in the outdoor kitchen and put that in so I can run dishes. And he's like, let me check the thing that I'm looking at first. So he did and did not find a problem there. And then in the midst of that happening, it started working again. So it is filling with water, but now I have the drain error again, but it's not like leaving water in there. So there's something foogly there.
Okay.
Are we leaning towards computer at this point?
I don't know.
Or it's was it the solenoid?
It wasn't the solenoid.
Okay, so that's what you checked?
Yeah.
Okay, and did you check the float switch?
There isn't a float switch.
There's no float switch. Okay, there we go. That exhausts all of the knowledge that I gained by watching a single YouTube video about repairing dishwashers. Anyway, JS Badger, welcome to the show. Our first segment is forage, and this is where we talk about what's coming up in the yard. I will welcome others of y'all into the live stream as we go. So Friday's show, I have decided, is more of an interactive show. And so like Monday, I don't usually interact with people. And then Friday I am. And that's because some of my audio listeners were like, hey, it's actually a little distracting when you get like off topic. So we're going to just dedicate to Fridays to ADD, the ADHD scatter mode, and Mondays to hyperfocus mode.
See, I was already in character this morning.
Well, what I think is funny is that I am not diagnosed ADHD, but I'm pretty sure it would be based on some things. And you are not diagnosed with the capital A word, but I think you would be. Yeah. If we did that. And so like the way that interplays is that he is like needs to do one thing at a time and structured. And I spaz out, right? Is that a good way to describe it? Oh. So it's not actually a bad compliment on the homestead. But I am the one who reins us in overwhelm. And I'm like, we need to make a list on a single piece of paper and just like, that's what we did yesterday in pen. I was like, what are the goals? There's a piece of paper. There's another piece of paper. Hey, let me explain. This is the list I made with Letty about long-term, like what we're going to do and where we're going to focus for the LFTN marketing. This was me drawing a picture of speaker cards before I laid them out. So that's garbage. And then this is me making a doctor's appointment that I had to remember some words to tell people on the phone. Our list is by the coffee maker where you'll see it. Yeah. Yeah, but I do have lists everywhere, which is typical of scatter mode ADHD lady. But it's kind of funny because you would think he'd be the one who needs to be on time, and typical like classic ADHD, we run late all the time. That is opposite. You run late all the time. Here's my favorite statement from him. He says, I'll be up there in 1 minute. I'll be up there in a minute. Actually, it does not mean 1 minute. It does not mean 5 minutes. It means anywhere from 5 to 25 minutes. Sprinkled with sometimes you forget you're supposed to come up. That happens too. So actually he runs late and I don't. I'm a time Nazi about stuff. I like absolutely feel physical pain when I'm late to something. This morning I had an 8 o'clock call with Letty and I had to do something before jumping on the call. And it was 7:59 and I'm like, I'm going to be a few minutes late. And then I went and did the thing that had to be done, dog related. and I thought it would take 2 minutes, and it took me 30 seconds, and I was still on time to that call. I was halfway through the minute of 8 a.m. So yeah, physical pain. I think that's just from being a latchkey kid as a Gen Xer. You kind of had to take responsibility for getting your butt to school on time, and you got in big trouble if you weren't at school on time, et cetera, et cetera. And so like that thing where I do lose time and hyper focus, or like morning getting ready can get distracted by 100,000 things. I developed a coping skill where there are certain things that have to happen at a certain time, and one of them is like show up to these live streams. One of them is if I make an appointment, show up to the appointment. And so those things always happen on time. And then like my to-do list, as he knows, is like this rolling set of priorities that moves around all the time, which is similar, which is why I did the my three things method. Was like, okay, so there's the rolling list that I'm going to do stuff on it, and then there's the stuff I have to do, and that structure has really worked for me really, really well. Margot says she keeps index cards and makes lists all the time. And Gorham Homestead needs to do one thing at a time too. I'm with Tactical. Otherwise, nothing gets finished. This is why I like working with Dawn, because she's the anti-Nicole. So when we work on things together, it works pretty well. Okay. But the real reason you're here is to hear what I'm finding in the yard to eat, right?
Talk about ADHD.
There's lots of chickweed and dead nettle up, and we have not harvested any of that to eat. I'm probably going to do a wild green saute tonight with some Swiss chard, because there's Swiss chard in the aquaponics system that it overwintered. So I've started some new Swiss chard seed this week, but also I have the plants from last year that were in the AP that I carefully covered with sheets when we went below zero, and they did fine. So that's cool. Also, we've got the watercress is usually coming on at this time. The only watercress I have is in my aquaponics system. The watercress in the creek got flooded because we had 19 inches of rain yesterday, or day before yesterday.
It was a lot.
It wasn't really 19 inches, but we actually flooded. I got a text message from Steve saying, I think, like, what is this water flow that I'm seeing in the yard? Is there a pipe broken? Sent me a picture. And there was a stream coming down the side of the hill he'd never seen and flowing out into the road. And I was like, that, my friend, is your spring. And, we get this lake right in front of the house on the road every time it rains, like it rained. And we're caught up with like everything that can absorb water has absorbed water. So then I thought it was the original spring. It turns out there's a second spring right next to the original spring, which is basically the same water source that when it gets really rainy overflows. And so he was like, man, I've never seen that before. Like he's been there a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had some dry times since they moved in, and now we have wet times. I was a little ooglied out yesterday when I drove up the steep hill in the four-wheeler, because I was like, how wet is this ground going to be? And am I going to make it up? But I made it up. That's great. So what that means is that the watercress washed downstream. Does that mean I don't have a patch anymore? No, there's still some there. It propagates like mad in the ideal condition, which is like slow moving water. And then it gets washed away in fast moving water. So it'll be back probably in about 2 weeks, unless we have something crazy happen. The dandelions are blooming. So right now is a good time to go out early morning and cut those flowers off and dry them for winter tea. And then the greens are also, like, some of the plants don't have flowers yet, and the greens are totally harvestable for a fresh salad, or you can saute them. As the plants get older, the dandelion leaves taste more bitter. So the ones that are flowering, you're more likely to have a bitter flavor in the dandelion. And then the plantain is up. So that's another green that we can collect. A lot of people don't like how that tastes. And when they get big, the mouthfeel is stringy. So you want the little leaves on that. And this is true of most of the greens that you harvest wild. Is like the younger they are, the better it is. If they're already blooming, it's usually like past the time to eat those greens.
Yeah.
And then something we've never eaten, but we are going to eat today, that I've known we can eat, I just never got around to it, are violet greens. And so wild violets come up, and people make violet jelly out of them and all sorts of things. Well, right now they're in the greens phase and they're young. And so they're not super tough. They will become tough when they. I had a backup plan for that. When they become like older and flower out, and right now they're just like popping up. Now I get wild violets in my garden because I don't actually fret that much about some of these edible plants that come up in my garden. I get them out of the way when I'm going to plant something, but if they're coming up through the mulch, whatever, they're just like super nutritious wild edible plants. They're coming up all over the yard. They're in the food forest. Like they're all over the place right now. And so I'm going to go out and pluck the leaves, and I'm going to include them in that saute we're doing. So we're going to have a nice spring saute. Something I love about this is that I think that, like when we think about how we've depleted the nutrients in our soil, and the things we buy at the store are not as nutrient rich as they used to be, things we get in the wild are literally existing with nature. They've got the fungal network. We're not tilling for the wild violets to come up. And I think that's a great way to tap into food density. And it's always interesting to taste new things. So the one thing I have read about wild violet greens that I have not experienced myself because I haven't eaten them is some people react negatively to the stems. So we're going to carefully eat the leaves. I'm not going to put a lot in this first saute. Like we're going to try them. And this is true with any wild plant that is edible. Like try a little bit and then see if it causes you to poop your brains out, because some people do react negatively to certain plants, even if they are edible. Like it's not going to kill you, but it might cause gastrointestinal distress. And you might not poop your brains out. You might just get a little soft. You just want to know, like you put a little bit in your mouth and see if it makes your mouth itch, and then you eat it. And then if you notice negative results, then you are maybe you shouldn't eat that, or you can actually build up the resistance-ish to it. That's another thing that does happen. Like your gut microbiome needs to deal with it too. And if you're eating something completely new that you've never eaten before, no matter what it is, it may make your gut react negatively. Like if you're in another country and you've never had plantain and you eat plantain, like that can do it too. So it's sort of the same thing. Like go a little bit easy on it. Yeah, henbit and dead nettle are going well at my place. Exactly. It's that time of year. It's like early spring year. Next, what will happen is we'll start getting the wild mustard. I did this with pokeweed, and I'm not entirely sure I can eat pokeweed.
Okay.
You remember when I had that ER visit because of the bee sting?
Vaguely.
I had also had pokeweed in the eggs that morning. And so now I'm like, was that a reaction to the sting or the pokeweed? It wasn't a lot of pokeweed, but I had a few baby leaves that I had boiled 3 times in salt water, like supposed to, and then I put it with the scrambled eggs. And you did not end up at the ER that day.
No.
Yeah. So now I'm like, I guess I better test pokeweed very carefully too.
You have an EpiPen.
But it's old. It's probably time to renew the EpiPen. I'd actually like to get epinephrine and syringes.
Okay.
Because it's way cheaper.
Okay.
Your back hurt?
Yeah.
Okay. Livestock. That's next. What do you want to say about livestock?
They're all here.
Okay. That's it. They're all here. One of them's about to leave on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's sad because he like rubs up against me like he's a kitten. But he's got to go. So I just talked to the butcher today. I canceled the butchery for the younger ram and rescheduled it into May because he's kind of skinny. And then, so we're just loading up one on Tuesday.
Yeah. Which is a shame because I kept that one for a reason.
Yeah, because he is so friendly, but he's
lost any form of respect for an electric fence.
Yeah. I'm still thinking we should just tie into the grid over there.
Conversation for a later
Yeah,
date.
it's going to cost.
Not happening anytime soon.
It's going to cost $1,500 to do it, right?
I don't know how much it's going to cost, but it's going to be a decent chunk of change.
I wonder if we could use the old electric wire that we have to drive over that used to go to the well house.
No.
Okay. So we have to buy a really long wire to do it. That's the issue. Okay. So rabbits have ear mites. And the way we treat rabbit ear mites is we put olive oil in their ear every day for a week, and then every other day, and then once a week for about a month. And that clears it up every time. Except what happened with our rabbits is I didn't notice that they had rabbit ear mites, and one of them has them really, really bad. So this is a time when I've decided to use medication on the rabbits. It's like they either have to be cold or medicated. And so we are going to dose them with horse ivermectin. And yesterday, he looks confused. So it's just ivermectin in an edible paste is what it is. At a dosage, like you measure it for horses in much larger amounts.
Yeah.
So I spent a bunch of time yesterday looking up dosage for that. And that's what so like there's a lot of information out there on this. And with a rabbit, to me, it's not worth an $80 vet appointment to figure out the ivermectin dosage and then buy ivermectin from them. So we're going to do a pea-sized amount of the paste in their food for each of all 4 rabbits. We're going to treat them all. And in order to do this, we've had to let their food get down to low so that they actually eat it. And then I think it's a week or 2 later, I have to look at the number of days, we do a second round, because what'll happen is it'll wipe out the mites, and then the little babies any eggs that were there will hatch. What you don't want to do, because one of my rabbits has a lot of like scabby buildup in her ear, you don't want to pull that off. You want to let that sort of naturally run its course. And then because you can hurt them, and if you like break the skin on a rabbit, they're more likely to get infections. So we just decided to do that. Well, I decided to do that. And Nighthawk was at Tractor Supply last night getting ivermectin, because I have horse ivermectin here. It's old. How old is it? It's probably 8 years old, because I got it for the goats and then never used it. But I got it in case I ever needed it for the goats. And I decided if we're going to use something for the rabbits, I wanted something that hadn't been sitting in my refrigerator for 8 years. Just for potency, like you don't know.
Yeah.
So that's happening, and we'll document that a little bit. We're also moving them into a quarantine area and not the new rabbit hutch, which he'll talk about later, while they go through this and out of the cages they're in now. 2 of them, I think, are getting processed, but I don't know when we're processing.
Yeah, I don't either.
Because they give us poop, and the poop is super useful in the garden. So that's where we're at. But we want to transition. I need another doe. We're going to reduce head count by 1 buck. And then we have the accidental buck that is left behind from D-Day. So, yeah. The duck coop, because I don't have chickens living with the duck, I have to do the work of the chicken. What does that look like, Tactical?
Going down there every day with a rake.
Yeah, so we use the deep litter method, and ducks have flat webbed feet, and they pat down all their poop and the wood chips that are down there into a nice, smooth wood chip pile. Would you say that's a good way to describe it?
Sure.
So when you go to take that out, do you like shoveling the duck coop when it's that way? No? And he's walking out of the room because my dog is barking at something and she wants to see what it is. So I go down there now every day to collect the eggs. And then while I'm there, I take a hoe, actually. I was using a rake at first, but they really stomp it down in this one area. And I rough it up so that everything's getting mixed up so that the wood chips can absorb stuff. And then I add more wood chips as needed. And that takes about 11 minutes. The whole process of that, getting the eggs and getting the eggs from the chicken coop on the way back up the hill. So if I wanted to eliminate that, I would get chickens living in there with them and throw out some scratch, and they would like it all up. But then I would have free range chickens on my property ripping up all my other stuff. So right now I'm trading 11 minutes a day or every other day for the freedom to not have free range chickens on my property. The baby lambs are due. Are they here yet? Are they here yet? Are they here yet?
Been asked that question every single day for like 2 weeks.
The best part about that question is if they were here, you know what he would do? Hey, there's baby sheep over here. Like he would tell me immediately, right?
Yeah, like literally on the phone from the pasture, I would be like,
hey, come over.
There's 1 or 2 babies on the ground.
So I went up yesterday to look at sheep butts to see how close we were. And I do see the hips sticking out, but as I feel them, I feel like they're skinnier than they should be. So we have increased, they get Timothy grass pellets at the end of the day. We've increased how many Timothy grass pellets they get. They have unlimited access to hay. The pasture's not all that awesome yet. It's just starting to come back. And so they're skinnier than I would like them to be. And what a lot of people do is support that with grain. I don't want to put them on grain and then take them off grain if I can avoid it. So we will keep our eye on that. And of course, the minute we have baby lambs, I will put pictures out on social media because they're so dang cute.
Yeah.
They're very cute. So I have a dozen chicken eggs for sale for the first time since this time last year when I got baby chickens that I wanted to raise for eggs. Woohoo! You know what that means, guys, is I need to make the chicken egg sign. But I'll probably just put it out to my network. Does anybody want a dozen eggs for $5? And we got 11 duck eggs today. Where did you find those?
Those were all in a coop.
Okay, sweet. So I didn't know if he had. That's like I've been getting 4 and 5 eggs a day. So that's like a huge bump up in one day.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many of those eggs yesterday came out of the coop.
Yeah, because your dog.
Well, might have not just been her, but I know the last egg did not come out of the coop, but the first 3 could have.
Yeah. So his dog just kept bringing him eggs yesterday while he was working in the yard. And I was like, is she getting him from the coop? That's why you got him this morning when you let the ducks out, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got 11 eggs. That means I'm getting close to a dozen duck eggs a day, which means I'm going to have duck eggs for sale too. I do actually age my eggs 7 days before making deviled eggs. And I have 2 sets of eggs saved up for this weekend. And people around here eat the crap out of deviled eggs, just so you know. Like Nighthawk will eat a whole platter of those by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So will you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes he picks at them, but yeah. So we're back into the cycle of Sunday deviled egg day. And I make deviled eggs on Sunday, and then we have them in the fridge. And when somebody's hungry, they can just pop one in. That works great. And let's see, goats are looking for a new home. I talked to a friend to see if she wanted a goat. The person I bought them from, if she wanted goats back, and she said no. I have pet goats because I use them to beat back the underbrush, and we basically don't need that service anymore. I'm not going to milk them. And I really, really like clover, and I really, really don't want to eat clover. Like, if I was starving, I would eat clover, but it'd be like she's already trained on tether and really good at eating underbrush, and she loves to do that. So I'm hoping that somebody will adopt her to be a pet instead of a pet underbrush eater instead of food. And I was originally just going to let her age out here, but as I've thought about the priority of our homestead, we're spending time and effort keeping these animals. They're not in the best conditions they could be because goats need to be out eating weeds, and ours are not. They are hanging out in their pasture eating goat pellets, and every so often I cut some stuff off of trees and bring it to them. So that means that it would be great if somebody had land to clear and they needed a goat because she's pretty good at it. And then the other one, I don't know if we can move her anywhere except for over the rainbow bridge, so to speak.
Get her into a trailer likely.
Yeah.
If she goes with Clover.
Yeah. She might follow Clover. Clover will go wherever Clover goes. She'll follow me on a leash. So but yeah, otherwise we're gonna be shooting that one. And that's just because she's never warmed up to being handled. She's actually friendlier than she was noticeably a year ago.
Yeah.
But still not. Like I had her caught. She got caught once on a branch, and I was afraid I was going to get hurt getting her off that branch.
She sent me to the ER.
She did send him to the ER. Yeah. Margot says, I'm sure Ashley would love a goat, but they have 1 acre. I mean, I don't know. Do they need to eat the underbrush on that 1 acre? The next segment is Grow. This is where we talk about the things we're growing on the homestead. And I've been saying for weeks that my seedlings are not started. Are my seedlings started?
Yours are.
So toolbox fallacy gets in the way a lot. And I needed to get my seed set up here. with a mat and some lights and blah, 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 blah. So we got that done. And then I was like, I need to move the lights before I started the seedlings. And then I realized that until they germinate, I don't actually need the lights. So I got the seedlings started without moving the lights down one shelf. But by the end of the weekend, that needs to happen because with my seed starting setup, it takes 3 days for tomatoes to germinate. I've got lettuce in there that usually germinates in a day or two. We'll see how they do because there was another toolbox fallacy in my way. And that was that I could not find the seeds I saved last year to start this year, which I do every year for tomatoes, peppers, and some other things. And I was like, well, until I find those seeds, I can't start the seeds. And I'm like, literally, it is March 6th right now. And I can't wait to find the seeds if I haven't found them yet. And the problem is they are in a box somewhere for sure. And I have not unpacked all the boxes. So I opened my seed because I know where my seed collection is. I have like this organizer. I opened the organizer and I have seeds from 2022 that I put in there and hopefully they germinate. And what I did is I just put more seeds in and we'll see how that goes. There is actually still time to recover. If those don't germinate, I'll just have later tomatoes than usual and probably have to buy some lettuce starts if I want lettuce. But the lettuce seeds I had were the ones I bought this year. So good morning, Prepared Citizen. We will see you at SRF. Awesome. I'm glad. Self-Reliance Festival is going to be super fun. So I can't wait for that. I also have been doing, many of you have heard me talk about the 15-minute homestead. This is where you take 15 minutes and work on something to move it further along on your homestead. And right now we are what I call critical path for Self-Reliance Festival. So it's like, I'm writing emails, I'm doing graphic design, I'm making sure that we've like, at this point, I have to go through all the speakers and I've sent them an email saying you're a speaker, but I need to be like, okay, here's all your stuff, right? And make sure that they're all set up properly on the website and like look at the schedule. Like there's all of these things that we do. And there is a great team of people helping me. So this puts me in critical path time for time because I'm also roasting coffee. I'm doing these shows, like all of the stuff is happening. I have speaking engagements coming up. And it's also the time on the homestead where a lot of stuff has to happen. Like I should have planted potatoes on March 1st. I am going to plant tomatoes this weekend. It's going to freeze Sunday. So they won't be up yet. So that won't be a problem. And this is early to start potatoes here, but I always start potatoes here early and rarely have a problem. And potatoes are not a cornerstone of my diet. So if I have a bad potato year, it's not like, oh man, I had a bad garlic here would really hurt, but a bad potato here, whatever. But what I've been working on is the food forest. So when I worked the food forest plan out with Nick Ferguson, he's like, how many hours a week do you want to spend maintaining your food forest? I was like, 2 hours a month, not weekly, 2 hours a month maximum, preferably 1 hour a month. And he was like, okay. And that's how we set it up. And that means two things. One, I have to accept that there will be grass growing in my food forest, which is fine. It's designed to do that. And two, I have to embrace that for the first 2 to 3 years of the food forest, I need to spend more time than 2 hours a month on it. So last year I didn't. And we ended up with weeds really tall. Did it kill anything? Probably. Did it kill anything important? Absolutely not. So I've been spending 15 minutes at a time out there just getting it ready for spring because I want to transplant some strawberries from one place on the property into there. In order to do that, I need to make sure that the soil is ready for that in a few places. I've got some fire ants in there that need to be nuked. That's just because fire ants need to be nuked. And we have duck coop litter for fertility. So I've been putting that out too. And before the duck poop goes in there, I have perilla that got really tall. So I have to get the perilla off there. And of course, it's dropping seeds. I'm trying not to drop seeds, but it's totally dropping seeds. So I'll be dealing with perilla coming up as well. Perilla being one of the major weeds that hits you in Tennessee. Very easy to control, though. It's aggressive and it comes back and back and back. But if you just whack it when it's about 10 inches tall, that helps. It's just that it keeps putting others up. It's from the mint family, so it'll go from the roots or seeds. And your ruminants aren't supposed to eat a lot of it. Like, so you'll see them nibble on it. And I figure there's a medicinal reason they do that. But they also aren't supposed. It can be toxic to them if they eat a lot of it. So it's not something to like fear in your pasture, because it's going to come up in your pasture in Tennessee probably until your pasture is of a health that Perilla won't come up. But I get Perilla in my garden too, even when I have the wood mulch down. Like, it's a super prevalent plant here, kind of like dead nettle. Like, I have dead nettle everywhere. It comes up all the time. If you scrape the earth back and new stuff grows, you get dead nettle and that weird vine and then Perilla. So I'm almost done with swale number 1, which is my biggest swale. It's a micro swale. And that's why I started there, because once that's done, the whole thing comes together more. And yesterday I got all the rest of the weeding done, and then I got about half of the litter out, which is why the hoe is out under where the roof comes, so it gets water on the hoe, because there's poop on the whole hoe, basically. And I'm really glad I'm tossing up the litter in the duck coop as a result of using this other litter where it was more cakey, because we only have 1 yard chicken right now.
It was a layer cake.
It was a layer cake, not the wine, not in a good way. My indoor longevity spinach is starting to put off shoots. So he rooted some that can go outside now after Sunday. It doesn't like to be cold. And then I have some too. And that is a plant that is a green you can eat, sort of like spinach. It's heat resistant, and it's supposed to bring health benefits that make you live longer. So it's an antioxidant, I think, is why. And then it takes over the world in the summer when you put it somewhere, which is nice, because I like midsummer greens, but I don't like ones that taste bad. So that's one of my more midsummer green strategies, is to have the longevity spinach, and then I keep it inside in a pot on my windowsill, and it kind of grows. And then like this time of year, I'm like, oh, it's like it knows it's spring too, because it's putting out multiples, and then I pinch them off, and you can like pinch them off, put them in the ground, and they root as long as you keep it watered. Like, it's the easiest plant in the world to propagate that I can even think of. So because I got round 1 of seeds done, round 2 is happening. So I have like tomatoes, peppers, greens, Swiss chard, and lettuces all done. And the next wave is all of the herbs. So that'll be like the basil, the fennel, all of that stuff needs to go in another tray. And I decided to sort of just get 1 tray done this week and then start another one. The fennel will be a little bit later than I like it to be, but it'll still grow as long as it doesn't get too hot too fast where I plant it. So that's something. Fennel is delicious to do sautés with. Holler Neighbors and Community is next. Anything to say about that? Okay, so while you think about that, Steve is helping you with the AC Foundation this weekend.
Yes, hopefully.
It was very funny when I was like, so today's another day I've turned the air conditioning on in my house if I had some, and I don't. And I know we have a lot to do. So the question is, do I need to hire somebody to help us finish this last thing? Because it's like not his responsibility to do that. And we do have fencing going on that takes a lot of time, including up to this live stream when he was late because he was working on making posts for fencing. So he was like, well, I could use somebody like Steve who is very precise with measuring to help me with the concrete forms. We have to pour concrete for my air conditioner unit outside. So I have moved from a window unit that's super big. It's 18,500 BTUs that was cooling half of my house by itself to a mini split, which can heat and cool and dehumidify, which is kind of cool. And it's more power efficient, but so like the head is in the living room, but the thing it needs to connect to is not. And that is because we needed to put it on a stable platform, and we only want to do the platform once and not have to move it twice, because the copper pipes that go up to it don't like to be moved. Like, that's how you kink them. So
it's also how you crack them.
It's also how you crack them, I guess. So that might start happening this weekend. We'll see. But it's funny because like it's a little early for air conditioning in Tennessee, but what's happening is the humidity levels rising, and in the way my house is built, it just hangs on to moisture. because I am built into the side of a hill. I'm like partially underground. And if you ever decide to build your house partially underground, talk to me first, because you need to think about what your climate is. If I was in Arizona, no problem. I am completely anti underground homes in Tennessee. That's just my thought.
Okay.
It can help regulate temperature, but man, the humidity that I have been fighting the whole time has been. I should have bulldozed this house when I bought this place and started over. And I just didn't know what I didn't know. But at this point, I'm now at the sunken cost fallacy state of things. I have put so much into getting this house livable that I don't want to bulldoze it. So I don't know. If I had an extra $500,000, would I bulldoze this house and start over?
Probably.
I might. Or I might just build on top of it, but then I'd have to have stairs. But yeah, I might. So that's actually something to think about.
Okay.
Should I just bulldoze the house?
Not right now.
We also have Sunday shooting day coming up this weekend. It's like the only sunny day or partially sunny day we have. So we're going to do some shooting at the range, and then we're having holler neighbor dinner on Sunday night. We haven't been real regular with those, and I'd like to get regular with those again. I think I've been too in my suffering about like I don't want to do holler neighbor dinner all the time because I'm trying to dig out of this. Like if I get an extra 4 hours this weekend, I could finish painting the trim in my office and then move the rest of my office stuff out of my living room back in here. And that would make a huge difference for me. So, but at some point you just have to pay attention to the people around you. So we're doing holler neighbor dinner. Next up, infrastructure. Tell them about the pond fence. Hi, CC dog.
Finally getting the pond fence finished, because kind of have to. The holdup was there was 2 sections, one of which needed a bunch of rocks moved and some dirt moved, and changing the way the infrastructure is on the property. It's like, well, that fence ain't going there no more, so I'm gonna run it across over here. So I got that part done. And the other part was just weird Tennessee terrain where your slope goes down in one direction and then halfway down it shifts and goes down another direction. And there's a tree there that you could attach or fencing to, but it's gonna die. And so I finally forced myself to go down there and actually figure it out. So I've got almost the entire thing stretched. I've got one more section that I need to put a support piece in for the post because it will not hold tension on a fence right now, but it's good enough that after this live stream I can go down there and actually, I don't know, zip tie the fence to the post just to hold it up, which will keep the sheep in. What not going to keep the goats in, wouldn't keep pigs in, but it'll keep the sheep in.
That's why we have sheep.
Yeah.
So he also discovered that 3x3 woven wire is cheaper than 2x3.
It's the 4x.
Oh, it's a 4x4 woven wire.
A 330-foot roll of 4-inch by 4-inch was like $310, and 100-foot roll of the 2-inch by 4-inch was like $210. So it's literally like half the cost.
Yeah, and I've known that the whole time. And the reason we did not originally put in the 3x3 woven wire here, which you see all over the place, and there's a reason for it. It's cheaper and it's still very strong, is that I did not like taking goat heads that got stuck through the 3x3 wire out of the 3x3 wire, or having to cut the fence to get them out, which has happened here one time with Clover, and because she has horns. And with the move away from goats, I was like, actually, there's no reason to use that dense of a woven wire in our perimeter fence. So I think that made him happy. Is it easier to stretch?
It's a little bit, it is in some ways and not in others. The only real downside to it is you really need to cut a little bit extra, because with the gap in between the wire being further apart, if you're at any kind of an angle, you where you can put staples changes, it's further apart.
Yeah. So, that makes sense. And I'm glad because our perimeter fence has been something I wanted done since 2020 and it is now 2024. And it has been a struggle the whole time. Not just like money and labor, like that's been a lot. But the bigger issue is we run into areas of the property where it's hard to figure out how to do a perimeter fence. Like we literally still don't know how we're doing the gate on one side of my driveway. And like we have a temporary solution because we don't drive in and out of that very much that involves a cattle panel. But when I moved here, there was a gate there that when it opened, ended up probably 8 feet above the ground because of how
Yeah.
steep it is right there. And it's not something where you can like slide back. And so I don't know what we're doing there exactly, but eventually something. And then the front gate, I think, did we finally figure that out?
I have an idea as to how I'm putting that in. Not 100% yet, but that's gonna be in the very near future.
Yeah. So, getting the gates in, and there were gates here when I moved in. The gate was, I can show him where the gate was. It actually opened out onto the road, I think. No, it swung in and up the hill. And one day we had wind, and it wasn't a tornado, but it was some straight line winds, and it blew that gate over. And that's the blue gate with the wheel that was crummy.
Mm.
Yeah, that was it. So I had a gate for a long time, and I was like, I need to fix this gate. We never fixed the gate. I even kept. Is that gate still here?
It might be the one that's up there.
I think it is the one that's up there. So we like literally still have that gate. But the reason I want a perimeter gate is for two reasons. I can put a no trespassing sign on that, and then people can't just walk up my driveway. And then the second thing is that to keep the ducks out of the creek. So the kind of gate I need is different than that one. That one keeps two-legged rats out and cars out. To keep the ducks out is a different scenario.
Yeah, that's
like we
gonna
might
be
need to go
interesting.
chain link across there and slidey slide. But I'll talk to him later about what that looks like. So we had a visit from the sheriff's office yesterday.
It was cordial.
Yes. So yesterday, because I've been, what you guys don't know is like all week I've been working really, really hard. I work hard a lot, but like literally there was a day this week where I woke up at 3:30 and I just could not fall asleep again. And so I got up. I was like, well, I can sit in bed thinking about stuff or I can get up and do stuff. And I got up and I worked on the computer on some things until the sun came up. And I got a lot done that day. And I also went to bed on I was like, it's 8:30. I think I'm going to bed now. I had a great night's sleep after that too. But I've been working a lot, and a lot of it has been around Self-Reliance Festival, just like details and marketing and all of that, and working with the team because we've changed how our roles are a little bit in the last week so that we can get more faster, basically. And as a result of that, I'm like, I'm on a homestead, but I've just been in this room right here a lot. And I walked outside and I'm like, you want to go see the sheep? Like the sun was out yesterday. I hadn't been over to look at pregnant sheep. And we decided to go up, and they're at the tippy top of the pasture pretty much. They're very close to the tippy top of the pasture. So I went up there in the four-wheeler. I took a panoramic video, which I put online, but I had texted it to a friend, and my phone like saved over the video a lower resolution version of that video. So it's like grainy and disgusting. But I put it out on Instagram anyway, just for the fun of it. I think I put it out on Instagram. And then I came down the hill, and I'm terrified about driving four-wheelers down hills. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah.
I'm a little less terrified a year later than I was. You have any comments on that?
Mm.
The problem is I've heard in excruciating detail the story of a man who was driving a tractor down a hill, hauling another tractor behind him, and the brakes went out. And he managed not to kill anybody besides himself, um, by a little bit, but in the process of not killing other people, he died. So, having heard that story by somebody who was a very good friend of him over and over and over as they process it, every time I come down the hill on any kind of anything, I freak out. Like, I'm tense. I was not even willing to go down the hill riding with somebody else driving who knows how to drive for a long time. Like, he would drive me up the hill and I'd be like, "Well, I'll see you at the bottom." And I'd walk down the hill. I still do it sometimes, don't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I drove up the hill, I'm like, "That's great. You can bring that down." That happened for a while. And then I finally like sucked it up and figured out on a lower hill how to go downhill and then on a steeper hill. But there's always that, okay, I'm up the hill. Am I going to make it down the hill again? So I have my phone with me in case I have a problem so that I can dial 911. But women know we don't have good pocket setups on a lot of our clothes. And what I probably need to do is get a fanny pack for that situation, just have it around my waist. And like I've had it in my breast pocket of the flannel before and it falls out. Or if you have it in your back pocket, like you could sit on it, and I just split my fingernail the wrong way.
Oops.
Yeah. Shit. Okay, that hurts. So I've taken, because in the front of the four-wheeler are like containers that we use for feed scoops, and then we go up and we give them feed scoops. So I've taken to putting it in the feed scoop. And yesterday, I don't know why, but my phone decided to dial 911 as I was driving down the hill. And I had no idea it had happened because like you can't hear anything. There's right. So I get all the way to the driveway and I go to the mailbox to get the mail, and I'm like, make sure I'm in first gear to go up the steep hill, and my phone rings and it's a Tennessee number. So I answer it and it's 911 asking me if I called 911. And I was like, well, my phone did. I'm so sorry. I am fine. And they're like, are you at this address? And they told me the address where I had been. And I was like, nope, I'm actually at my address, which is this other address. And they like took my name. And I come up to the house and I'm like, I think we're going to get a visit from the police next. They didn't tell me the police were coming, by the way. So I think the police probably went to the other address first.
I think he came straight here.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was a good 45 minutes later that the police came.
Yeah.
Like I had already, I was like, oh, maybe they aren't going to come. And then I sit down to do something and I hear him talking to somebody outside. I'm like, oh, the police are now here. So I walk out and I'm like, hi, you're here because I pocket dialed 911 and I am not under duress. And we kind of had a laugh about it. I'm like, I appreciate that you guys do this, but I'm sorry I made you drive all. He's like, I had to drive from the other side of the county. I'm like, yes, you did. Because the police never come here. And they're often like any activity in this county is closer to the city in general. And like, we're not a meth road, so they're not here.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, sorry about that, man. And he just, took off and whatever. It was very clear I was not being held hostage.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the police came. So be careful with your phone pocket dialing 911. And I've actually decided I need to have another method for that. The rabbit coop is not done, the new one. And what is happening today that we haven't talked about yet, so Tactical's just hearing about it, is he's going to bring up last April for the spring workshop, Alan Bouchard came by. Those of you who are in our social media, particularly on MeWe, will hear him. Like, he's the guy who knows how to fix like everything in the world as far as farm equipment goes. So he's a really good guy to interact with. And he came to visit on Saturday night because we sometimes do an open house on Saturday night. And he brought me a 4-cage rack of rabbit cages that I don't know why he brought it. But
he just asked if we could use it.
Yeah. And
like, sure.
And so it's not like ideal for raising rabbits the way we raise rabbits, but it makes a really good rabbit and chicken infirmary.
Yeah, it's been used a lot for that purpose.
Yeah, so it's how we quarantine animals. And there's this tray in between things so they're not pooping on each other's heads. But we're bringing that up, and probably power washing it. I'm not sure if we're going to power wash it. I'm going to sneeze though, so you talk.
Like, I have no idea what we're talking about because you didn't tell me this beforehand.
I told you this yesterday. We're bringing it up, cleaning it up, and setting it up so we can quarantine the rabbits who are in the other cage where they have the mites.
Okay.
Yeah. So it needs to come up today and get washed and then set up. And then I sort of want to talk to you about where we set it up long term, because we can't just put it under Taj Mahal for the summer. It's too hot.
No.
But I want to have it somewhere semi-permanent that we'll probably move out of the way when we have the workshop, so that we always have a nice infirmary area. Because so you have two choices on the homestead. You can try to nurse animals through things that happen, like ear mites or whatever, or you can just cull them because they got sick. And we operate in a sort of a compromise between those two areas where, like, if it's something that biologically they can pass on, and create weaker offspring, I'm not going to let them reproduce. But if there's a way to keep them alive so we can eat them or get some value out of them, we will. And so, and with the sheep, obviously we're not putting them in rabbit cages, but for the rabbits, like, I don't want to process the mite-ridden rabbits and feed them to the dogs. I want the mites cleared up.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to process them and put them in the ground. And, like, there's probably no reason not to feed them to the dogs because the mites don't pass from rabbits to other animals. Like, mites are specific to the animal. But so having that infirmary is helpful. Or when I've had a chicken that gets picked on a lot, we'll move them into the infirmary and let them recover a bit. A lot of times when that happens, we are actually processing that animal, though.
Yeah.
Unless there's, if it gets its foot caught somewhere, we might let him recover. So it is like, it's a really cool thing to have, is a dedicated space that you don't just put stuff in because you're like, where am I going to put this? But that you have dedicated as an infirmary in case you need to quarantine an animal. And the other thing is, when you bring new animals in, you also want to quarantine them from your animals because you don't know if they have a problem. That's how you import diseases into your animals. That's actually why, like, having a ram out here to impregnate the sheep is something we have to be fairly careful of.
Yes.
Because we don't want to bring anything in, and we don't want to give anything back either, right? That's just the way it is. Okay, next up, we talk about finances. This is our last segment. So this is your last chance to get questions in. Write questions in all caps, and then write your question. The pond fencing is a big deal. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's infrastructure. I'm looking at my notes wrong. You guys can just laugh at ADHD Nicole on that one too. We finally have eggs for sale, which means I need to make a sign that says eggs.
I'm pretty sure your old sign is still in the workshop.
Oh, let's bring that up.
Okay.
It says $3 though.
Probably.
They are not $3. Chicken eggs are $5. Duck eggs might be $9, but I'll start at $8 and see how that goes.
Okay.
Maybe just go to 10 on the duck eggs.
9 or 10.
Okay. It's easier to go down in price than to go up in price. And then I'll probably make some flyers and put them at the marina and that sort of thing nearby. Because what I don't want to do is deliver eggs. So that's going to happen. And then it is time to launch the chicken processing class, which will be in June this year. And I've worked with another farm to grow the chickens for me, the same farm that grew them for the Salatin class, because we don't like eating meat birds. So everybody goes home with their own chicken. We'll have a couple to show you on. They are a really cool farm that grows them, and they do a great job. They do the rotational tractoring chickens. Joel Salatin said the chickens that they make are as good as the ones that he makes at Polyface. He's like, I wouldn't hesitate to resell these at any time, basically. So really good chicken, just not the kind of chicken I like to eat, because I prefer the American breast variety, which is more of a dark meat friendly variety. And we'll be doing some of those this year. But that's going to be, what is it, June? I think it's the second weekend in June on a Saturday. We'll launch tickets for that next week, but we're not going to push them real hard because we're focused on Self-Reliance Festival a lot right now.
Yeah.
And it's the way that is. It's always like a month before the Self-Reliance Festival. We're always really focused on Self-Reliance Festival, like getting those last tickets. Speaking of which, get your tickets to Self-Reliance Festival at selfreliancefestival.com. It's a great way to meet people. Dawn Gorham just put a great post out on Facebook about how Self-Reliance Festival has changed her life. And definitely go check that out. That's the Gorham Homestead on Facebook. With that, guys, we are at the end of the show, and I don't see any more questions. So if you want to support the work we're doing, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. And I've been getting a lot of orders. So thank you very much. If you are a member, there's a discount code. If you can't find the discount code and you're a member, reach out to me. The other way is to consider becoming a member and get access to monthly webinars. That's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.